Our final speaker this afternoon is Meena Sankaran from KETOS, talking about data as a service and other intelligent water systems transformations. And just, Meena, before you start, I just want to remind the audience that we are opening the Q&A for an additional 30 minutes, so this will stay open until 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, at the end of Meena's talk. So Meena, I will hand it over to you to give your presentation.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I echo G and Barbara's thoughts on just what a great opportunity to be part of this forum here and speak over this afternoon. And I can now see how Erica and Ben arranged the agenda for me to go last, because I think it's fantastic sort of bringing just the impact of what everything that utilities have been doing, as well as all of the flash talks and following the concepts of what Gigi presented with digital twins. So thanks for your time in advance, everyone. One of the categorization of this session was an outsider's perspective. And I think I just want to point out real quick that my background from a water standpoint is probably the least on this panel with, around 6 years. But the exposure to sort of broader technology and building enterprise and infrastructure
Meena, I think your audio cut out.
We might have lost Meena.
So she's
yeah, the software is showing she logged out, which I don't believe she tried to do.
Ben, do you want to do a few questions while we get Meena back?
Yeah, why don't I do that? I will go ahead and start. Actually, let me let Erica go ahead and start with the questions, and then we'll see if we can get Meena back online.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ben. All right, so thank you everyone for sending in your questions, and please, if you have more questions.
Oh, hi, Erica.
Oh, Meena, are you back? Nope. Okay. Apologies for that. So let me go ahead and ask the first question. So, this question is for Ting. Ting, how long have you been working to get to the point of where you guys are at today? Realizing it's a journey, how far along are you?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think it's always a journey. You know, we have a very solid IT foundation, so that's what makes this possible. And our digital solutions transformation is to really getting more engaged with operations and engineering technology. So the department was rebranded almost a couple of years ago. That's where we have this additional innovation on IoT sensors, data analytics, and we have an opportunity team that's focusing on opportunities and innovations there. So where are we? I think I think overall we're probably just getting more awareness, even though I think the culture for clean water services is very innovative. I think some digital twin, we are definitely already built the intelligent water system, but overall as a utility, I think we are in probably the midpoint to building a twin there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll just pause there to see if we have Meena back with us.
Yeah, I'm back. I didn't realize that actually looks like it dropped me off. Really apologize there. It's always fun when your exact 15 minutes is when things act up.
It's all right, we're all good, we're on track.
Of course, nothing shakes up in the last couple hours. But just a quick recap. I wanted to point out the 3 factors that really have been eye-opening in terms of learnings from speaking with utilities as an outsider's perspective. And the first was just gaps in sensor communication and sensor capabilities of data collection. Second was more around the integration and the interoperability of how you actually mine the data after you've collected a variety of different types of sensors. And then third is the actual business model. And this is something that's very important because traditionally startups are quite discouraged to work with municipalities and utilities because slower adoption, longer sales cycle, and also how do we help the utilities that are so stressed in terms of capital budgets and others? So I think the business model is as important, and not just the technological innovation that's sporadically happening all across the water industry with the adoption. So with that, from a sensor standpoint, just to quickly touch upon here, the learning from a biggest gap, and a couple of Ting had pointed out different types of commercial off-the-shelf sensors. The big gap there is how do you understand completely autonomous monitoring of heavy metals, and not just your environmental or physical parameters, but inorganics and heavy metals. So understanding lead, copper, arsenic, manganese, your groundwater, because the utilities, contrary to some folks who might think as outsiders that it's very linear, it's not. Utilities have to serve some groundwater customers. They have rural areas. They have industrial water effluent and wastewater. They have, so it's a combination of not just drinking water from a public health standpoint, but drinking water, industrial water, as well as ag water. If you combine sort of the different sources and types of water that a broader utility lends to, have to look at from a problem standpoint, so which is extremely crucial. And so one of the key things for us has been, how do you build a system that is not only autonomous, but is affordable? Barbara is very foresighted in how she mentioned her utility about really cutting costs. And there is a lot of value for how you build a digital twin and build an architecture where you can have significant savings. So being affordable and having that ROI. And third, not compromising on your precision. Because one of the things you'll realize a lot of instrumentation lands up being is you land up compromising a bit on accuracy or precision for it being a bit more autonomous or remote. How does technology and tech solution providers take that challenge to not compromise on the accuracy so that utilities have the best of the data possible? So I think from when you look at all of these aspects, there are several issues that you can actually address. One is, how do you build and maintain unmanned sensor hardware? And this is something that has worked really well for us during COVID, because our customers have been able to completely manage, remotely control all of the data and have it in their fingertips while using a mobile phone, whether they're home or they're in the field, if they have to be in the field for some other work, but not necessarily monitoring. And the second aspect of it is communications infrastructure of connecting all this, because some utilities have expressed they have a lot of sensors that they've invested in, but those are not online from the past. Why should they compromise on it? And as a utility, I think you have to demand the solution providers and technology providers to think of it not from a vendor-centric approach, but to really bring all that data in so that a utility can look at it from a very holistic standpoint of how that data-driven insight can help them in their day-to-day operations. And that's where the real value is. And ultimately, how do you take those analytics and make them work for you? More often than not, utilities don't realize that they have the power in their own hands, where they own the data and they have more data than any other software platform company can come and actually show value, because the data is already there. It's how do you take that and really make it more valuable compared to, you know, adjacent markets that are already doing that with energy or power transportation and other grids. So having very simple things like is, you know, making some certain principles around how you do your architecture can go a long way versus solving problems in a very band-aid sort of short-term cost prohibitive ways versus looking at really longer term but architectural decisions where you're compromising less on interoperability as well as accuracy as well as affordability, where the analytics are really driving your decision making. So one example that I want to touch on is how do you really build vertically integrated solutions? And as part of that vertically integrated solution here, not sure this one doesn't populate, but anyway, so as part of a vertically integrated solution, what you want to really look at is, are your sensor solutions really transmitting data bi-directionally? Can you actually control those sensors remotely? So it's not just transmitting, but can you control them remotely? That's a good ask to have. Second, as the solution is detecting different parameters, can it be shifted to not be a fixed system? So it's a very interesting thought, and I want to just plant that seed and keep it intriguing in your mind. What if you're buying a sensor that's not a fixed system? So if you're buying a chlorine analyzer and you're investing all that money, can the same system be a silica analyzer in next year because that's important? It doesn't exist. And so I think bringing that modularity and having the concept of measurement as a service can be really, really influential and very beneficial for a utility, because now you're thinking of a menu or a buffet of options, but you get to decide which parameters are important to you when, based on different scenarios. And you might play these models with the digital twin, you might play these models with a platform, but ultimately you're using it towards benefiting your day-to-day operations. And I'll give you an example. So from a KETOS standpoint, that was extremely important to me that as a solution, we offer an end-to-end offering. We do not charge the customer any CapEx, because why strain them on capital budgets? And second, what if we were able to help change the mindset where frequency of testing is no longer associated with the cost? So if you're able to have a flat concept of data as a service, where regardless of how many tests you do or how often you test or how many parameters you test, if the utility has a predictable cost to it as a service, what value does that give them? And I think this has been a very interesting, eye-opening sort of result for us in the last few years, talking to utilities and talking to operators who think about, wait a minute, I no longer have to spend weeks of time calibrating, cleaning, prepping a sample, grabbing a sample, unless I absolutely need for a parameter that the system cannot do. And now all my, either I can integrate this data with SCADA system, which is fully integrated, or I can choose another platform that I already have in my environment. Let's say, you know, in Barbara's case, as Aquavista is already there. I want to integrate anything new that's coming into Aquavista, so we have a single pane of glass. All of those pieces drive innovation, and you cannot force innovation into a utility if you can't evolve with the utility. So I think there is onus on both the solution providers and the utilities to really take this incredible opportunity at this inflection point that we're at for, you know, in the water sector from an automation standpoint and digital transformation standpoint, where utilities can be the people and the operators can be the person steering the wheel, while they demand what the technology providers and solution providers really look at the holistic architecture and provide models where you can do completely data as a service without heavy CapEx, but also really looking at how overall solutions can manage day-to-day offerings. We're doing it for water quality, we're doing it for water efficiency, And I think we are seeing those benefits every single day from a utility standpoint, for them to be able to have that data, manage, run a test from their mobile phone, shut a leak off from a mobile phone, and have those secure controls no matter where their monitoring station is, or where, depending on wherever they have an anomaly. And I think the value of understanding those anomalies, being able to act on them even before an actual incident happens, is priceless, because that's you serving your constituents, and that's ultimately your customers. So I think as a solution provider, for me, coming from the enterprise sector where SLAs are extremely high, which also is very, very similar to how water utilities would think, it's about serving the end customer, the utilities customers, and making sure that we're enabling the utility to be as successful in that technological path, and not just think about the innovation from a technical standpoint, but also from a business standpoint. So with that, there's a ton of things that we can talk more about, good examples, bad examples, and I'd be happy to answer a whole bunch of questions during our discussion. So I'll hand it over to you, Ben.
Thanks so much, Meena. Great presentations, everyone. Again, really good workshop, and a lot of excellent information being presented. So Eric and I are going to jump back and forth with the Q&A. We've got a bunch of great questions on here, so looking forward to hearing from everybody. So Erica, why don't you go ahead and get started, and then I'll take the next one.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Ben. And thank you everyone again for submitting your questions, and thanks also to all of our speakers for the phenomenal presentations. I want to start with a general question, and I'm going to direct this one to Ken. So this is a generic question. Will there be a trend as we are implementing intelligent water systems that less and less workforce will be needed as machines will replace people?
That's a really good question. We've been part of the WRF workforce studies, and you're going to see